as you've seen, Mr. Saran, there are European countries at the moment that want India to take a stronger, more well-defined position, if I may use the word, on the war in Ukraine. You've got Denmark, which has come out very strongly today and said India must take a position which is more critical of Russia, name Russia as the aggressor, Ukraine as a victim, and shedding what is being described, as I said by some, as India's neutral position. The Prime Minister in Germany is saying there will be no winners in this war, trying to walk this tightrope. Do you believe India has to shed its so-called neutrality at the moment in any way and be seen to be aggressively siding with one side or the other while the Prime Minister is in Europe?
Well, first of all, I don't think it is correct to say that we are aggressively siding with one party. I think it is clear that India does not support Russian aggression against Ukraine. That I think is quite clear. I think it would be a mistake to look at India's relations with the West narrowly through the prism of India's relations with Russia. Yes, certainly I agree with you that the West would like India to take a more vocal stand on Russian aggression against Ukraine. But I think far more important, as I said, that both India and the West have this greater challenge of coping with the fallout from the Ukraine war. The fallout in terms of what is going to be the shape of the new international environment. I think that is far more important, and I think the West is quite, mindful of the fact that, if you look at India-Russia relations in a certain longer-term perspective, these relations have become progressively more marginal. Whether you are looking at the trade aspect, if there is an energy partnership that India sought, Russia, in fact, was far more inclined to have that energy partnership with China rather than with India. And even as far as the defense hardware relationship is concerned, over the last 20 years or so, there has been a progressive diversification of India's military hardware sources of supply. Right. Yes, there are certain legacy issues because we have been, in fact, a country which has been, very much, dependent upon technology as well as on defense hardware from Russia of the kinds that they have not been possible to obtain from the Western countries. Now, here there is an opportunity to also encourage the United States, encourage the West to be much more open in terms of, meeting the kind of requirements that India's, defense has and meeting the challenge that we face, particularly from China. So I do not think that the West is so hung up on the rhetorical aspect, of India-Russia relations. I think they are quite clear after the engagement that they have over the last several weeks that while India may be reticent in terms of, openly criticizing Russia, it is certainly not, in fact, a country which is actively supporting what Russia is doing in Ukraine. That much, I think, is quite clear.
Mr. Saran, you've already mentioned China more than once. You seem to mention the fact that we could see a newly emerging international order where China would like to play an increasingly assertive role. And as you wrote the other day in a column, you believe China remains our principal threat. How do we therefore use Europe, perhaps, or the West to combat China in a sense? Do we become part of a new multipolar world, already part of the Quad? Is that the way forward as the Prime Minister visits Germany, travels to France? Can we be seen to be part of a new arrangement, alliance that can check an expansionist China and can include some of the European countries as well?
So, Rajdeep, I have often said that there are two kind of dimensions to our meeting the challenge from China. One is, internal balancing or domestic balancing, as we say. Domestic balancing is that there is no alternative but to, in fact, accelerate the transformation of our own capabilities. Whether it is economic capabilities, technological capabilities, our military capabilities, the more strong India is in terms of these capabilities, the better it can deal with the challenge of China. That is one aspect. The second aspect is, while that transformation is taking place, what are the ways in which we can try and put a certain degree of restraint on Chinese predilection to aggressive behavior. And in that respect, certainly having strong relationship with the United States of America, strong relationship with Western Europe, strong relationship with our partners in Japan and Australia, this is part and parcel of that response. So both are important. And as I pointed out in my article, that these relationships with the United States, with Western Europe, with Japan are also very important precisely for that domestic balancing. Because, first and foremost, we want a transformation, a development of the of India itself. So I think whichever way we look at it, it is very important for us to really advance these partnerships with these countries. And don't forget that even though Europe had a certain kind of a balancing relationship with China, because China was such an important economic partner and continues to be a very important economic partner. But thanks to what happened in February with the joint statement, thanks to China's support to Russia despite the Ukraine war, there are now questions being asked about whether or not it is really prudent on the part of Europe to have this strong kind of economic exposure to China, which may work against them in the long run. So I think there is a certain kind of a convergence of interests among the major players today, whether in Japan or Western Europe or US, in terms of trying to see how we can restrain China from a very, very aggressive kind of behavior, particularly in the Indo-Pacific.